Well, the world faces a fair degree of volatility that's reforging industry across sectors and spaces and redefining boundaries, be it in automation, robotics, or augmented reality and artificial intelligence. And at the core of the transformation lies not just technology, but technology that's designed to drive innovation while enhancing productivity and furthering sustainability through automation. Solving for this growing need is Rockwell Automation and its army of 29,000 people who deliver tech-driven automation solutions to power the digital revolution for clients spread across over 100 countries, bringing about the next generation in smart manufacturing. On this edition of CNBC TV 18's Global Dialogues, I'm speaking with Blake Moret, the chairman and CEO of Rockwell Automation. Blake joined Rockwell Automation in 1985 as a sales trainee, and after holding several leadership positions in varied business areas, he became CEO in 2016 and was elected chairman of the board in 2018. Blake, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us, and it's great to have you back in India the first time post the pandemic.
It's great to be back. Thank you.
So let's talk about India, Blake. You're here to inaugurate your Chennai facility, which is going to be in addition to the one that you already have in Pune. A, the big picture on India, and then B, we'll talk about Chennai.
So India has more Rockwell employees than any country in the world outside of the U.S. We do software development, now manufacturing, and it's just a great platform, not only for resources for the world, but also to be able to better serve the Indian market in its own right.
So this new facility in Chennai, what is that going to deliver on?
So the products in the facility in Chennai are primarily focused on the semiconductor industry, but this is just the first phase. I expect there to be more developments to come.
And you will be operationalizing the facility early 2025?
That's correct. It's on a fast track.
Well, you talked about semiconductors, and I was wondering if you have a view on what the government is attempting to do on the semiconductor side. They've got this big semiconductor mission, and it's pretty much like what the U.S. is trying to do with the semiconductor industry back home. Of course, the quantum of the subsidies on offer very, very different, but when you see the CHIPS Act and what you see India doing here on the semiconductor side, what does that tell you?
Well, first of all, I think the supply chain shortages of the last couple of years showed us just how critical semiconductors are in everything that we do, and indeed for our quality of life. It's a multi-year vision. I think it's a bold vision that the Indian government has, not only to create the fabs, but also the ecosystem. And all of that coming together is going to be a multi-year journey, really important for resiliency in the manufacturing economy.
So, from a global perspective, and you talked about what India is delivering at this point in time for Rockwell globally, how has that changed over the years, and how has India's significance changed for Rockwell over the years as well?
So I think we started with a modest footprint with respect to Global Engineering Center, and while it's not a new concept for Rockwell, we've rapidly scaled. In fact, we have double the number of employees that we had at the start of 2020. And we're not done. Continuing to mature in that respect and really offering services for our global businesses throughout all phases of product development, application engineering, and post-sales support.
Patents being filed here in India as well?
Yes.
And do you see that as something that you will continue to build momentum on?
We absolutely will. We expect that.
Let's talk about the global environment. And as I started by saying, it is volatile and it continues to be fairly challenging depending which market you operate in. Let's start with the U.S. The economy has been resilient. There's been a lot of talk around recession, but we haven't seen one. And now with the Fed likely to cut rates sooner than what most people were expecting. How do you see things turning around as far as the U.S. is concerned, specifically on the manufacturing side?
I think as long as unemployment remains relatively low, in the low 4% range, people are going to continue to live their lives. There's going to continue to be a suitable amount of consumer demand, which will continue to drive that economy. Certainly, lower interest rates are going to help convince manufacturers that the time is now for investments to be able to have a lower cost of money. But there will also be vertical-specific dynamics. So as we've talked about, automotive, taking a little bit of pause in the velocity of the electric vehicle build-out, but there continues to be investment in other aspects of the manufacturing process for automotives, including the tier suppliers, food and beverage, life sciences, the energy transition, warehouse automation across multiple verticals. I think these are all vertical segments of manufacturing that do hold promise for the next couple of years.
I'll start by talking to you about automotive and specifically what we're seeing happen on the EV side. And you called it a pause. Why do you believe it's a pause and it's not sort of undoing of the kind of gains that we've seen for the EV side? Because a lot of the global OEMs are either putting their plans on new launches, etc., on hold, and there is a fair amount of uncertainty on what that's going to mean in terms of future investments with the subsidies sort of being phased out.
So EVs as a percentage of vehicles on U.S. roads is around 10%, maybe just under that. I think that's going to continue to increase, but it's not going to be at the torrid pace that was originally predicted, say, 24 months ago. I think it's also work for the OEMs to do to get their supply chains in order to be able to create the manufacturing capacity for batteries, for instance, that really didn't exist in the U.S.
So on the manufacturing side, not just auto, but manufacturing in general, when do you expect a recovery? Because you have cut your full-year guidance on the back of the uncertainty that you see, within the environment. When do you expect a recovery?
We expect that the underlying demand will continue in a period of gradual sequential improvement through the rest of this year and into next year. This year was marked by a dynamic which we had not really seen as much before, and that was an overstock of material at our distribution and among the machine builders, because as the supply chain shortages began to ease, we found, and our supply chain found, that there had been over-ordering of products. And a lot of the dynamic this year that resulted in the guidance cut was due to material that was in the channel. And so even though the underlying demand from end customers remained strong, the channel had an overstock position for much of this year. So it's not
a demand issue as much as it is an inventory issue?
That's correct.
Okay. So, outside, when do you expect this inventory issue to sort itself out and to be rebalanced?
We see the majority of that overstock inventory position to have decreased through this year. And so what we expect going forward is a period of gradual sequential growth. So each quarter being a little stronger demand than the one before it, continuing into next year.
What's the outlook as far as spending is concerned? Because, as far as tech companies go, it has been a challenging last few quarters. Discretionary spending has been, muted at this point in time. What's the sense that you get on tech spending?
So I think the tech companies are going to continue to innovate, because that's the lifeblood of tech companies, and I include Rockwell in that as well. So we continue to preserve investments for new innovation, for customer-facing resources, and I think a lot of our customers are doing the same thing as well.
Well, we are going to take a break here on the Global Dialogue and return with our conversation with the CEO of Rockwell Automation right after this.